Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 792. My opponent here was actually a viewer of my channel, so it was nice to get to play another viewer. He started off with d4. I went with knight f6. He goes c4, and I went e6. So I'm preparing to play the Nimzo Indian with the bishop to b4 there, which is by response if he plays knight c3. You see, knight c3, however, is actually the second choice. The top choice is the move my opponent played here with knight f3, avoiding the Nimzo Indian. And now black is left with a number of choices. The top choice here is really just to play d5 and go into a queen's gambit declined position. b6, the second choice, that's the way I most often play it. That's going for a queen's Indian. And it's the way I originally learned to play this setup. You can throw in e6 and knight f6 in almost all cases, and then depending on how white responds, you go with either a Nimzo Indian or a queen's Indian, and they're both very solid defenses. Bishop b4 check, the Bogo Indian, is something that Chess Explained wrote a book about that, using the Nimzo Indian and the Bogo Indian as a system together. The fourth choice, c5, is a Benoni. And it's an interesting way to get into the Benoni. As I mentioned, you're playing a Benoni where white is already committed to a knight on the f3 square. So it's not, it's just a particular line in the Benoni, and it's an okay line for black. It's still good for white. White has the advantage in most Benonis because white has more space. Let's see, so this is a standard line. And then d6. You don't want to allow that pawn to keep coming forward. It's really a pretty annoying pawn if it gets all the way to d6. So you stop it at that point. And then he plays knight c3. White is just preparing to play e4. And with g6, black is getting the typical, this is your counterplay with the Benoni, this pressure, one of the sources of counterplay. It's pressure along the long diagonal here on the dark squares. Also on the half open e file. You sometimes get some tactics, and I'll show some examples, not from the game, but in the standard lines. Let's see. He went e4, and now the main move here is bishop g7, and I didn't play it for some reason. I'm a little bit rusty. I haven't played the Benoni in a long time, and so I was just forgetting the exact move order, and I was starting to worry about this move e5, so I went ahead and played knight bd7, which is not strictly necessary at that point. So let's show the main line here. Bishop g7 and h3 to stop the bishop from coming out. Bishop e2 is also an idea, allowing the bishop to come out. If the bishop does get kicked, it'll probably trade itself for the knight on f3, because that knight is always supporting this pawn push of e4 to e5, so it's nice to be able to get rid of that piece. And black still has one really excellent bishop on the long diagonal, so usually that's okay for black. So h3 prevents that trade from happening at all. And then castles. Bishop d3, shoring up the center. And now b5. And this is the tactical idea I wanted to show. It's very typical of the Benoni. You would think after knight takes and, rook e8, threatening to take back, you might think that white could just drop the knight back. But it turns out you could take the pawn anyway. Because after white takes, you've got the move f5 there, taking advantage of the pin. So in this position, after you sacrifice a pawn on b5, white normally castles, and you get the pawn on e4 back. And so that's it's an okay position for black. It's okay for white too. It's not like anything went wrong, but it's playable for black. So anyway, that's kind of interesting. And also, the move I was worried about here after bishop g7, I thought he might just push on with e5. That's really just a mistake in this position. And see, I take, he takes. And, sometimes this is bad for black because this d-pawn no longer has anything to stop it. But it's also not protected. It's isolated. So this position is okay for black, and I really didn't need to worry about it. In fact, it's probably a little better for black than it is for white. I can go ahead and castle. I've got an advantage in development, and I could put pressure on this isolated pawn. I've got squares for all my pieces. So anyway, I was afraid a phantom threat when I was worrying about e5 at this point and playing knight bd7. So we're just out of the opening book, although some of the same ideas still apply. He plays h3. This will prevent, a future bishop g4. I go bishop g7. He goes bishop to f4. Yeah, h3 also has the idea of giving a square for this bishop to retreat to if I ever attack it with knight to h5. But well, one immediate point is he's attacking the d pawn, and so I defended it here with the queen. Yeah, the chess engine actually slightly prefers bishop d3 over bishop f4, but anyway, this is still okay. What's interesting here is that once again there's a tactical response here. I don't actually need to defend this pawn. I can castle, and if he takes it, I can just take this pawn, and let's see, I have two pieces hanging. But well, if he takes the knight, I can pin and win the knight with my rook. But what if he takes the rook? Then here's another tactic, an example of a tactic on the long diagonal. You can just take this knight off, hitting the queen. So no time to retreat this bishop. He's got to take back, and then this comes with check, and you pick up this rook. And so it all turns out okay for black. It's not like black is better. I think white still has some edge, but it's a sufficient defense, as it were. Black still has quite a playable position there. So queen e7 and castles were both considered. They were the top two choices of the chess engine. It rated castles first and queen e7 second. So both playable for black, but I just thought that was an interesting tactical line. Okay, so queen e7, he goes knight d2, and that was a good move. This knight here, combined with the bishop, always keeps an eye on the c4 square, and so that's a good move to keep in mind when you're playing against the Benoni. I found that quite annoying later in the game. Let's see. So I castled here. He went bishop e2. Went knight e5, just blockading this. And one idea with knight e5 is to support this pawn coming forward to c4. But like I said, he's got a clamp on the c4 square with this knight and bishop. It's always kind of annoying. But if you can get in c4, sometimes you can hop this knight into d3. That's often an idea. And the other idea is that this knight can come around to the c5 square, and then both knights can coordinate against d3. So anyway, yeah, white is doing a good job of clamping down on those plans. So white can just castle here. And I played rook e8. The chess engine actually rates rook e8 as a bit of a mistake. It wants to play knight f to d7. So, well, it starts to clear this diagonal, so maybe it creates some threats along that diagonal. It shores up the center here, so I can always take back with the pawn if this comes under attack. And then if he drops his bishop back, I was talking about this is often a plan. In fact, the chess engine recommends bishop h2 here. I can actually play g5 here and use the g-pawn to clamp down on the f4 push. So that's how the chess engine would play this position. Anyway, I played with rook to e8. He went rook e1, and I went a6. I want to build up to b5, and he puts a stop to b5 immediately with a4. That's another good move. You really want to stop that, because if if black is allowed to build up this pressure, build up this long diagonal, I would push on from b5 to b4, chase the knight off that diagonal, and build up pressure along those dark squares there. Let's see. So after a4, I went bishop d7, and I thought maybe that was a mistake because he played a5 and now he's clamped down on this b5 idea. But it turns out, my other idea would have been, if I had thought about this a5 move in the game, I would have played b6 probably. It's a standard kind of response, so that if he plays a5, you have b5, and you still have the idea of slowly building up with bishop d7, rook b8, and then b5. So it gives you that chance to get the pawn structure you're looking for. But in this case, it's a little slow. So chess engine thinks that white is just winning with these moves: bishop back to h2, rook to b8, and then f4. And this is the kind of plan I was expecting to see in the game, which never quite happened. but this is one chance where this would be a good line for white. But I didn't play that b6 move. I played bishop d7, and he went a5, clamping down on the b5 push. Put my rook over here to b8 anyway. He went queen c2. And, oh yeah, this is the point. Yeah, so in the game, this is the point where the chess engine says now is the time to play bishop h2. Now, in response to bishop h2, I do have g5 here, so I can prevent f4. But, well, he gets some activity. Let's see. And maybe he can target these pawns later. Oh, and he takes here. And it has me taking back. Oh, yeah, he's got this covered with the knight, so I have to take back with a pawn. So this would be a good line for white, because now white has the passed d-pawn and it's protected. So it's kind of an ideal situation. This is the pawn transformation that white wants to go for when playing against the Benoni. So that's, if you see a line that gets you to a position like this, that's almost always the way to go with white. So I've held up the f4 attack, but he has this long-term positional edge with that protected passed pawn there. Anyway, he went queen c2 here, and this is where I played b5, and that's just a blunder, so no two ways about it. I just didn't notice that that this pawn was going to be hanging, and he can just take it. The funny thing is, though, that my position is not so bad after he wins that pawn. It's still a playable position, I guess, because of the weakness of this pawn. As long as I can hold on to the center, seems like I can probably hold that position. So the chess engine says, don't grab that pawn right away, but once again take on e5. And, well, there's a nice tactic here that I missed. And the point is, if I take with the queen, the knight is coming into c4, forking the queen and the rook. So the rook on b6 is a target. And so that's the point I missed. And I guess my opponent missed that idea as well. So I have to take back with a pawn. And, you know, once again, he's got this kind of ideal pawn structure. Plus he's got this pressure. Well, he's hitting my rook, so the rook has to drop back. And he wins this pawn anyway. So anyway, this is very good for white. White is probably winning here. So rook takes a6 is actually a mistake and lets me stay in the game. Let's see, I take, he takes. And then I went with rook b8. Let's see, the best way for me to continue here is to play knight to h5. Bishop drops back, and then queen to g5. And I'm down a pawn, but I have activity for the pawn. And this is still playable for black. After rook b8, once again, it seems like white is winning here. The only problem white started to have at this point was he was spending too much time. He played this move bishop f1, which is one of the top engine choices, so not a bad move, just getting the bishop out of trouble and holding on to the king side. Yeah, the chess engine rates white as winning, but at a certain key point he's a little bit slow on time and misses the key idea. But for the next few moves here, white is keeping that edge, and I'm kind of maneuvering around and looking for a way to break through. He's activated his rook, finally trades off the knight, but doesn't do any particular pawn damage here, so I'm holding on to the pawn structure. But still, he's slowly making progress, getting his pieces to more active roles. You can see that, well, he spent 2 minutes on move 20, 40 seconds here on move 28, 20 seconds here, 40 seconds there. So, you know, this adds up to the point where he's starting to get low on time. Let's see, yeah, I think this was the last move where he spent a lot of time thinking. And so I pretty much have to take that knight off when it hops in there. So he's slowly been making progress here. And let's see, I block with knight to c7. And now he can sort of crown his achievement here and win the game with the key move knight to d5. And, well, this is a pretty annoying move. My knight is under pressure. When I move the knight, I'm losing the f-pawn. So I should take. That really is the best move here. He takes back, and then rook takes b2. I mean, I do get that move in. Queen comes over here to e4. My f-pawn is still hanging, so say queen f6. The engine gives white, I mean, the material is actually even at this point. But this pawn structure is a nightmare from my point of view. This guy is only 2 pawns away from queening, and it's very solidly protected. Chess Engine gives white a +5 advantage at this point. So that was the key point in the game, or maybe one of them, maybe the last one, where white had a clear winning chance. So he went with b3 instead. But like I said, he was kind of low on time at this point, so not able to find the best moves. Let's see. I played rook b6. Let's see. You could still try bishop c4, and that would lead to a position with some edge. Rook takes c6, bishop takes f7. But you know, it's a complicated position that I could play on in. So not necessarily a clear win. And after knight d5 here, and I take, we get this sequence of exchanges. Oh, that's right, he took with the rook. I took, and he took, and I took. And after this, it's down to a queen and an opposite colored bishop, and the game is very drawish. So let's step through this. He's hitting this pawn, and I come over to defend things and activate my bishop. Yeah, right here I should have just played king g7 and held on to the pawn. But because of the drawish tendency of the bishops here, even this move, which was a mistake, queen f6 is what I played in the game, giving up a pawn. I give up a pawn, but I get this drawn endgame basically. And so I just have to prove that I can draw the opposite colored bishop endgame a pawn down. But it wasn't too hard to do. There's just one little trick, something to be aware of. Right here, I played g4. You know, if you play a move like bishop to d4 here, which is tempting, you know, just to kind of shuffle and stay in place, at this point when the king is attacking the bishop, he can get in the move b4. And while technically this is still a draw, this actually gets kind of complicated. It's still a draw because I can take here, he can push, and I can bring my king over, and apparently I'm in time to stop this pawn. But it's a close thing, and I don't know if I would find all those moves. So anyway, that's got to watch out for moves like that bishop d4 move. Watch out for little tactics. So just because it's a drawn endgame doesn't mean it's easy, but you're alert and you put your pieces on the right squares, you should be okay. So let's see, trade it here. And let's just go forward a few moves. I mean, basically the idea is that he's got a light squared bishop, so I have to blockade on the dark squares, and I have to use my king to defend my one light squared pawn here. And then I can just shuffle the bishop back and forth and keep my other pawns defended. Then when I trade that off, that's just one fewer weakness for me to worry about. And I just keep my king on a dark colored square, and that pawn can never get past it. So there's no way for black to make progress. And once again, I have to avoid the move bishop to d4 here, but I just can move my king in a case like this. So let's see, he went here, and I can shuffle the king a little bit. And when he advances the pawn, I take it off. And then in a position like this, I can start to shuffle the bishop. Now I really don't have to move anything. The king can always stay here, and this bishop can always just go back and forth. And there's no way for him to stop that, so he agreed to draw at this point. Anyway, interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you again soon. Bye.